First of all,
war.
I mean, I think one of the things we're talking about is the whole the uniqueness of this nation,
Hmm.
the so-called America, and a lot of the things that are going on in our lives,
Wait,
right?
I gotta write that down. The so-called America. Yeah,
And well, I mean, because
that,
because America is to me is humanity. I mean, when I say so-called America, is it is truly it's the platform and the foundation that how to be free humans on this rock stands for, and there is really nothing stopping the rest of the planet to be like this place,
yeah, yeah,
other than legislators and policymakers and governments and you name it. But
yeah.
personally speaking, I feel privileged and grateful and lucky
Yeah.
that I live here, and I'm
And, and you didn't
truly
start out here,
benefiting.
right?
Oh, you
You
got
didn't
no, I
start here.
didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. And but that's probably one of the reasons. But it wasn't that because I didn't start here that really opened my eyes. There are a lot of folks that are foreigners
Yeah.
that come here, that they see the atrocities in their nations happen, and they're still buying into this whole progressive craziness with the social safety net of government taking care of you, and how that is going to be the solution. That really, if they sit back and look back, is it's kind of um, it's one of those good things that is again, it's a government versus people
Yeah.
that ends up in such a uh, nasty way, affecting the well-being of
Yeah.
humans everywhere, right? I mean, but
Yeah. Yeah. Um, there's so it's interesting that you say that because what has come up on this show, and this is we're only 10 or 12 episodes in now, but I've already
mhm,
had a few guests who didn't start out here, who weren't from here originally, and
right,
in most cases they were older than you. I think you were 9, right? So or something
yeah,
like that when you came here. So you were
yeah,
young, and the recurring theme is that people who come from other countries they come to America have a like a I don't want to say a better perspective, a different perspective, and by and large, kind of appreciate things that we here sometimes take for granted. But you made an interesting point, which is we also have people who come from other places and they kind of don't get it. Is what you're saying?
well, I think it's the whole point of the emotional cord.
Yeah,
Those guys that have come from. Look, I mean, I think humans in general are good people, or good species. I mean, they want. They're not evil,
yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah,
I
yeah,
think. I mean, they're not great people among us, but there are, for a majority of stuff, people's need is pretty straightforward. Safety, security, taking
yeah.
care of their families, and
That Maslow
really.
guy, he summed it up pretty well. Yeah. Yeah, wasn't that Maslow's like hierarchy, right? Of the needs, the hierarchy of needs that says we all kind of basically are motivated by these same things.
The
Yeah,
fundamentals, all right. I mean, and and I think this is in the hands of folks that want to really influence people. It's pretty much the same things that they use. That sense of security and sense of I'm going to take care of you, and and don't
hmm,
worry and stuff like that is where they it's kind of like that. That kind of into people's computer, which is their brain, right? I mean, that's
yeah,
that
sure,
false sense of
yeah,
these people are going to take care of me.
yeah,
But fundamentally, I think I I think we all believe that if it was free for all and everybody for themselves, this would not be.
It
This would
wouldn't
be
work.
wild, wild west,
It
right?
wouldn't work. Yeah.
Yes, I mean we do need the government has a role. I mean, I think our founders, we have. I think we all agree that there's a role that the government, whether at any stage plays.
Hmm.
But really the prosperity, taking care of yourself and your livelihood and your families uh, is really is on the individual. I mean, and I think our Bill of Rights, our Constitution, in this nation is the best, and the capitalism that which is our economic model. It
Hmm.
is the absolute best combination that allows um, we, the people, to work hard and benefit from our hard work. And look, not everybody's going to become multi-jillionaires.
Yeah.
That's just a fact of life.
Right.
But I
Right.
think I think in this nation, we can, with working hard and the opportunities that our system provides, we're not stuck in a caste system like the untouchables in India, for example, unfortunately are. And in many of these other countries, if you weren't born in the right family, you're it. I mean, it's just
Yeah, that
it's
still
terrible that you
exists,
know.
right? I mean,
Yeah,
so when
absolutely.
so the title of the show, "Saving the Dream," which I took kind of off the concept of the American dream, which once I did a little bit of, because I didn't even like, I wasn't even sure like where did this notion of, or like who came up with the words the American dream, and it's in this book. James Truslow Adams, 1931. He wrote this book, The Epic of America, and he kind of describes the American dream as being all those things that you just said, and um, and at the time, he talks about that like here in this country, you don't necessarily have to be born. You can. Well, he says it the other way, which is irrespective of what family you're born into or what kind of like he doesn't say caste system, but and I think he had Europe in mind mostly. Oh, because he says whether you're a landowner or not, and
Sure.
so I think he had sort of European hierarchy largely in mind, and we kind of think of all that as being like the modern world is beyond all that, and somehow we've created this modern world where those kinds of inequality or incongruencies don't exist anymore. But it does, as you just said, we do have it in places. Still, there are still places, unlike this country, where you got to be in the right place, right?
Well, with intelligence comes, you know, in, with intelligence, I think in our species, as compared to anything else, right?
Yeah.
It becomes a sense of how do you influence. It's a sense of sense of selfishness
Mm.
that is human.
Hmm.
I mean, and to think that everybody's going to be like Jesus is completely naive,
Right.
right?
To think that
I
anybody,
mean,
that
there.
anyone's going to be like him, yeah, is kind of a
Well, I
problem.
mean, he set the bar, right? And he set it so freaking high,
Yeah, you're
that the
right.
rest of us, we all make mistakes. We all have, you know, um, you know, like I said, just things that we're weak at,
We're
and
driven by human. I mean, we're driven by human. I mean, it was nice that you said that humans are, generally good, but we have like there are aspects of our humanity that don't
well,
naturally drive us to do good things, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
To me, I mean, I think generally speaking, we are good, and generally speaking, we want we're not evil. There are not too many. Thank God, there are Hitlers of the world out there,
not that we
and
hear about anyway. Yeah, yeah,
all right. I mean, and even if they are, you know,
right.
I think the bigger and more people are educated, and when I say educated, I'm not talking about book smart.
Right.
The
Right.
self-awareness and an understanding, and not allowing to be influenced into things
Yeah.
that, you sit back and you use your brain. I mean, I think that is
Mm.
that it is something that we take for so much granted. Our intelligence and lack of self and our own power, and we believe that other people, certain people, have all these right good things in mind. But remember, at the end of the day, the responsibility of what happens to us is squarely our own. Our It's all our own shoulders, and we're responsible. You know,
And by our own, you mean individually as
individually,
individuals, right? Yeah.
100%,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean,
Not
and
everybody. That's not a popular way of thinking. And the other thing, so
that's right.
you mentioned something that I didn't want to gloss over. You said, in education, intelligence, not so much the book smart, but being able to
Common
essentially what you
sense.
said is think for yourself.
Right.
And I think as a society, we're not really driving people in that direction. It feels like we're driving people in the opposite direction, which is
That's right.
we're gonna and to me it started with well, okay, so there's the motivation and then there's the mechanism. So we could talk for a long time on the motivation. The mechanism started early on when we started having, like 24-hour news, followed by the internet, followed by social media, to where now, like, it used to be like when we were kids and our parents wanted the news. Maybe they got the evening paper or they watched the evening news or something, and they got some of the facts, and then it was kind of up to you to figure out the rest on your own, right? Like to decide what you think about it. But now, because we have this constant stream that's like everybody is fed everything, like almost force fed, uh, it's like we're gonna not only are we gonna give you the facts, but we're gonna tell you what the facts mean, and we're gonna tell you what to think about the facts, and we're gonna tell you what you ought to do about the facts. So you really don't have to think for yourself. And in my head, all of that happened because once we had to fill up a 24-hour news channel or 24-hour news cycle, and once we had to fill up all the social media channels and everything else, what we have to, like, there's not enough facts to report on to fill all that up. So what we have to have is a whole bunch of people talking about the facts and telling people what the facts mean, and et cetera, et cetera. And now I think that I'm not sure that people really, because if you watch what happened during COVID, whatever your position is on whatever the severity was or was not, there's no question that people were just taking what they heard and applying it. Like that's kind of how it was working, right? That was a whole bunch I just said there, but that's kind of a soapbox for me, which is I don't think I think we're not pushing people in the direction of actually thinking for themselves anymore. We're actually like thinking for them.
So I don't know. How old is our species? I mean, obviously, I'm not talking about Eve,
Like, yeah,
but
it's
but
millions
a
of
lot has
years. Yeah.
happened. I mean, but a lot has happened in the last couple of 100 years, and I think with the advent of energy and the modernization of our lives.
Hmm.
And what was it? I just learned. I was listening to Dr. Milton Friedman,
Yeah.
and he was mentioning that with the advent of energy and so on, there was a time that 80%, 75, 80, 85% of our energy and time and focus was spent on you know finding food, preparing, and food and security and clothing and stuff like that. I mean, it
Survival,
was
basically, right? Yeah.
survival, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And once then the whole hydrocarbons and electricity and this whole renaissance of modernization came about. Now that has the amount of energy that goes into supplying our food and clothing and just basic necessities of life that used to take 75, 80%. Now it's down to 15%. So generally speaking, the prosperity that cheap energy, affordable energy has brought to humanity. Now, there's a categories of humanity we'll talk to in a
Yeah,
little
sure.
while.
Sure.
I'm talking about the Western world,
Yeah. Yeah.
Western Europe and
Yeah.
America,
Yeah, it's different.
US, North
Right.
America, that, you know, we're prosper because rather than spending 80% of our time and energy and resources to go after finding food and that and survival, it's 15%. So we have the significant more capabilities and resources that are accessed that isn't spent time and energy wise on survival. Now we're prospering and do these other things with our life with it.
Yeah.
So with I guess where I'm going with this, I kind of lost my
Yeah.
track, and but
Well, I think I
I
know.
think I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
where I was thinking about help me get back on
So,
my my
so I was kind of bitching about how people don't think for themselves anymore because we filled up a
right.
24-hour news cycle and it tells them everything they need to know. And I think where you went was okay, but over the last couple hundred years, the amount of time we have to spend on things has shifted, so that now has either that or you were just going a different direction because you didn't want to talk about that in the
No,
first place.
no. I tell you, I mean, so where I really wanted to, I agree with you in that we're going through it. Thank you for bringing this back up. We're going through, as a species, we're going through a transitionary, I mean, fundamental
Yeah. Right.
transitionary period of our existence.
Yeah.
And the outcome of this is in my view, existential. And again, forgive me for some of my pronunciations and so on and so forth. But
That's
to
okay.
me, our humanity is coming to a crossroad um, with this whole advent of data, information,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
accessibility of you know this whole
Yeah.
internet. The
Right.
internet
Right.
is a game changer with information and access.
Sure.
And look at you talk about 24-hour you know TV, news network. Look at the phones that we hold in our hands.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
People don't need to sit behind on a couch watching TV. I mean, this phone is you know Big Brother is tracking it with everything what we're doing everywhere. But more
Yeah. Yeah.
importantly, and I think more importantly is the dollar is money, right? I mean, a lot of these big tech, Amazon, Google, you name it, Facebook, they know how we behave, and that information allows them for self-serving to them
Yeah.
how to put information in front of us to make us think less, go somewhere else less, stay focused on them
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
buy their products, buy their advertisements. I mean, it's they're not doing it to be evil. They're doing it to capture the audience and keep that
Right.
audience's attention for their benefit, which is at
Yeah.
the end of the day,
For their
making money.
advertisers, right? It's making money,
That's
and
right.
and I've always been a big fan of making money, so I don't
No,
want
I don't
to.
have a problem with that.
I I never have. Well, yeah, with the
Well,
exception of
some of the things. Okay,
yeah,
so then, and then, as I said, this is all transition. I mean, I truly believe that there comes a time that I think we as humans will become smarter, and we recognize how to use this incredible tool called internet and this information at your access
yeah,
more beneficially than allowing people, entities, organizations, whatever else, take advantage of us
yeah,
because
yeah,
of what like all the things that people talk about, how they don't trust the news media, how they don't trust this, how do they trust that. To
yeah,
me, I had the answer to them as well. Why do you? why don't you do your own homework? I mean, go do your own research and look at these things,
Yeah.
and to
Well,
go
the
from there.
same tools that are the same. It's kind of interesting what you're saying. I hadn't really thought about is the same tools that are making us dumber can make us smarter if we learn to use them
Huge.
better.
That's right.
And so in your view, this is a transition where because all these things. Yeah, because you started out saying how long has the species been around, and you figure that's millions of years, and then you say, well, in this last 200 years, look what's happened, and that's such a
Right.
compressed period of time. So we've had there's like a lot of crap thrown at us in a very short period of our evolutionary existence, and maybe maybe we're gonna get dumber before we get smarter, right? Once we learn how
Well,
to,
it just tells us how incredibly powerful our brain is, and
yeah,
how
yeah,
incredibly powerful our capabilities are.
yeah,
But physically speaking, and I think this whole health issues, and I think our bodies are probably the bottleneck, because the society, the modernization of human life is way going faster than the whole evolution of the body's capability of dealing with
mm.
these, the plastics, or food, or processed food versus the natural
Yeah,
food, and
yeah.
so on
Well,
and so
that's for
forth.
damn sure. Yeah,
All
that's
of these are,
yeah.
these are just going a little too fast, and I think you know, some of us are paying for it with our lives, with cancer and so on. But
Right,
but but
right.
ultimately, I think we will overcome, our species, if we don't destroy ourselves because of our stupidity. I think we will overcome a lot of these technicalities that before the natural selection would have dealt with. But I think we have much with our brains. I think we have incredible opportunities to address a lot of the things that
Yeah.
we need to survive.
Technicalities, that's a good way of looking at it, right? We have these I mean, it's kind of funny, but it's also if you look in the broad scope, it's true. I mean, that is what they are, and either we're smart enough to straighten it out, or we evolve through it, or whatever happens. You said something else though a little earlier that I know is a big thing for you, and I think is not oftentimes people don't. Certainly, younger generations don't realize this, but you commented briefly about how energy, um, like affordable, abundant energy, back before we glamorized the word energy, uh, how that made a difference in society, particularly here and
Yeah.
here in the U.S. in the Western world, either one you could say, but explain that, talk about that a little bit more because I think it's an interesting it's it's a big component of why we are where we are, and people are a little bit reckless with destabilizing that component today, not understanding how much a pillar of it is in our existence.
Is fundamental, is energy abundance, energy access, energy reliability. By energy, I'm talking electricity. I'm talking about heat,
Right.
when you want it, when you don't want it, um, and the various other aspects of um, its essence into what we call modern life. I don't truly, we have spent, we can talk about the politics and the background of why we are where we are with this whole energy issue, and the world is coming to an end with climate and environment and so on. And um, but the facts are black and white. You know, energy affordability, energy abundance, and is essential to humans' prosperity. Absolutely, there's no other way around it. And 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 when you talk about energy, its effect isn't down the road; it's immediate.
Mm.
And I mean, the moment one day you go to a gas station and you you fill up your car for $45 for a fill up,
Hmm.
and then a week later, it's still the same car. You go to the same gas station
Yeah.
and it's $65.
Yeah. Yeah.
That $20 is an immediate effect on your wallet. I mean, this isn't taxes down the road or
Yeah.
national debt. This is something that you just took out of your wallet 2 weeks
Yeah.
later.
Right.
That $20 that last time around you felt could have been used for your kid, for yourself, for something else other than filling up the same gas tank in the same
Right.
car, basically doing the same thing. And
Yeah.
that's just a great example of why energy
Mm.
affordability and prosperity to is so connected and so directly connected. So to me, is it's we in the Western world where you know because of our economies, because of our government, and our capabilities, we're able to really utilize this whole take hydrocarbons, and it is hydrocarbons.
Yeah.
Majority of it started with coal, moved on to oil, and then natural gas,
Hmm.
and it's the ability of truly harness this incredible power
Yeah.
versus burning wood, versus burning or heck, I mean, whale oil was before there was
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
oil.
Sure. Sure.
There was whale
Yeah.
oil
Whale
that
oil. Yeah.
that actually what saved the whale was actually hydrocarbons
Yeah.
because they
It's
didn't have to kill them to light up
that is.
the
I hadn't
ladder,
I
right?
hadn't thought about that. It's very ironic. Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah. I think the part that I think is lost on people today, not only because it was a long time ago and it was our great grandparents, is when so with the not just the discovery of hydrocarbons, but the ability to to make use of them in an economical way. Once that happened, the advances in society and quality of life and prosperity happened very very fast, right? It was like that was an accelerator. Like if you look back, let's say all that happened somewhere around the late 1800s into the early 1900s. If you look for hundreds of years prior to that, advances in society and and people's ability to live a better life happened very slowly. There wasn't that much difference between the 1300s and the 1400s, and there wasn't that much difference between the 1400s and the 1500s, except the art got a lot better and the music got better. But and then all of a sudden, in a very short period of time, everything changes very fast. I mean, am I reading too much into that, or do you see that being
No,
and that's something that we don't? I think. Well, and the reason why I think it's important that we understand that now is because if you're too careless, if you're too reckless with disrupting that thing that changed everything so fast, because you got some sort of political agenda, if you're to your point about the gas, the extra $20 in the gas tank. What about if it's not an extra $20? What about it's an extra $50 or an extra $70 just because the state that I live in decides that we want everybody to buy electric cars instead of this? And we start like screwing with the system if we disrupt it too much and we knock that pillar out. That's like if we don't have an appreciation for how fast this turned the world into something really, really very much better, we can very quickly turn it into something really very much worse. Is my thought.
100%. I mean, and I mean the whole thing about what our energy down the road is going to be is legit. I mean, I don't have a problem
Sure. I've
for
seen
this
Star
whole
Trek, right? Yeah, there's
you
something.
know,
There's something else that we're gonna do, right? Yeah.
right. And you're absolutely right in terms of we all agreed that for a long-term existence of humanity, hundreds of thousands and millions of years down the road, we have to make it to that point of with new technologies and new sources of energy. But that does absolutely not mean that Germany, Europe, and North America should completely shut down their energy affordability and the foundation of prosperities in their nations because they believe the governments in these nations believe that it is CO2 and fossil fuel or hydrocarbons that if we don't do this, the world is going to come to an end. I mean, and the funny part about this is that people don't realize at the same time that Western Europe and USA is doing this,
Hmm.
okay, China and India
Yeah.
they cannot put
Yeah.
coal power plant fast enough
Right.
for consistent, reliable electricity and energy.
Right.
And I'm not holding anything against them because they are looking at their billions of inhabitants and trying to figure out how these people are going to um, live and how their industries are going to proceed. And so if the actual game plan with this whole energy issue in the Western civilization, Western world for us is environment, then we have to look at this globally, and it cannot be little patches of Germany and not Poland or Europe and not
Yeah. It's
anywhere
not
else.
going to
It
matter.
has to be a that's right.
It's a rounding error in the whole thing.
Oh, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and I worry that I mean, do you think are we and I know and you're involved in a lot of this particular area of things on a daily basis. Are we so not that we shouldn't be looking for whatever that future form of energy is. I mean, I'm looking forward to the Mr. Fusion, right? I can just put the Mr. Fusion on
That's
my
right.
on my
We
countertop,
all
and
are.
yeah. But
We all are.
or
Back to the
what was
future,
it?
right?
Start back with Mr.
Throw the
Fusion
trash into the
and throw
car.
the trash into the Mr. Fusion, and you're done. Or whatever that plasma stuff was in Star Trek that
Right.
made everything go fast. But if we force it too quickly, like you said, because we're afraid that the world is going to end, which I don't know. Some days, I think it'd be good if the world did end because then we could just stop arguing about all this bullshit. But, but,
No.
but I think it's not gonna is the thing. I don't think it's gonna end. And so, are we? So when you look, so in the people that you're dealing with in your observations, um, am I being an alarmist in the reverse sense, or are we pushing it too hard? So there's two good points. One, which you said is if a little country or something or a state or something says, "Hooray, we're net zero," it's like it doesn't matter compared to the population of China and India put together is what the whole world was not too long, just a few years ago. Like,
It's half of
but
the
if
population. Huh?
yeah, but if we put together, but if we are we? But in the places where we have nice, comfortable lives and we're very modernized and we're industrialized, are we putting ourselves in short-term jeopardy? Not because of the climate, but because we're gonna disrupt this because we're pushing it too fast. I mean, should
No.
should I worry about that,
I
or do
mean,
you think we're okay?
well, what's happening? Yeah, we should worry about it. We should worry about it because the people that fundamentally will get hurt the most from
Yeah.
these really wrong policies to go about, the next energy renaissance. The people that get hurt the most are the people on the lowest people on the totem pole.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the
Sure.
poor, it's the retirees, it's the elderlies, is the low income folks. They're the ones that $20 difference in that gas station bill
It's a big deal.
meant having meat versus beans on
Right.
their
Right.
plates. And then look, there's a huge side of the population, even in this country. We're talking 2/3 to 3/4 or more when it comes down to, if you put in the 50% of us are on welfare, okay, basically, right?
Is that right?
And
Is
then
it
you
50?
take
Wow.
it's pushing there anyway.
Hmm.
I could be wrong, but I tell you, somehow
That
or
feels
another,
like
I
that
think
feels like a lot
49 to 51%, I think
of
is
households anyway.
they
Right.
get
Yeah.
some
Yeah. Yeah.
sort, yeah, some sort of a government subsidies of some sort, which is
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
incredible. But anyway, if you think about small business, if you think about low and middle income households,
Hmm.
okay, numbers are this. I mean, we're talking 8 out of 10 families in our households, okay, are living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
not talking about that 8 out of 10 are poor, but when
They're
people
not
make more
building
money,
wealth, right?
they
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
live
Hmm.
they want bigger houses, they want more this and more of that. So, but that doesn't, when I say paycheck to paycheck, it's just that 8 out of 10 of us is that. 59% of us in this nation, okay, have $1,000 or less in our savings accounts for emergency spending, cash.
Hmm.
This is 59% that I'm talking about. You know, 52% of the households in our nation make $50,000 or less in income. I
Hmm.
mean, when you're talking about $50,000 or less in income, you're talking about households of typically four. And we're
Yeah.
talking about, this has
It's
to
not
pay for
much.
your
It's not much.
transportation, your house bill, your kids, your this and your that. So when you talk about policies and things that are being used because, well, the environment this, the environment that, we can't do this, we can't do that, and the gasoline goes to $6 a gallon, $5 a gallon, the not, your heating bills go 20-30% up. Well, these people that I just named are folks that will get hurt because they don't have unlimited cash to
Hmm.
spend as these things go up. They have to cut from somewhere.
Yeah.
So the elderlies, the retirees, and the elderlies, the fixed income folks, one of the things they do, they reduce their thermostat, okay,
Yeah.
from 60s to 50s. And
Right.
guess what?
It's cool.
11,000 of them die
Yeah.
because of respiratory problems. These are the elderlies because they need heat, but they can't heat their houses enough because their bills are just way too high because of policies that ultimately, well, we don't want to burn natural gas. We don't want to do this. We want to put these things, these climate change stuff around the world, this, world, that, and these are data that is available. I mean,
Yeah.
and
So let me ask
so
you.
anyway, so
So let me ask you
there's a
this.
cost for all that.
As my New Jersey relatives would say, let me ask you this. Um, uh, it's true. Um, Part of what you just said, if I wanted to, I could make a case. So if you so your preamble to that was Americans living paycheck to paycheck and we don't have shit in the bank and and if we're living that irresponsibly with our lives, so it's a chicken and egg thing, right? If I put the I don't know which one's the chicken and which one's the egg, but if I rearrange it and I say, if we're living that irresponsibly with our lives, maybe that's why we need the government to like take care of us, because we're not very good at it, right? If 59% of us, all these things that you said, like we suck at living responsibly and planning for the future. So maybe we need the government and to take care of us. I mean, but you mentioned policies so that are causing us this trouble, and I could argue that, well, it's not policies that caused you to spend all your money on liquor instead of like putting it in your gas tank or whatever. So what? How does that play out? Do you
Well, the
think?
beauty of this is what you just bring about, Michael, is we have examples of of we have real life examples right now of things. Which system is better? I mean, is capitalism and American Constitution and our way of life worse than some of these other places that the government is going to take care of people? Well, go ask the Russians and the Chinese and some of these
Yeah,
Venezuelans and all these other people. How do they like the way they're living? And you don't have to ask them. Just look at their
yeah.
livelihood and look at
It's obvious, right?
who
Yeah,
is trying to why are people you know trying to get into this country? I mean, we talk about immigration, we talk about migrants, we talk about this, we talk about that. Why am I not seeing that happening to some of these other countries? Why is this America? Why is this some of
yeah,
these European countries that
yeah.
these migrants are trying to go to? Is it what? I mean, so no system is perfect, but I can
Sure.
tell you with confidence that what we have is the best in class, is best that
Hmm.
humanity has to offer. And is it perfect? Heck no. But
Yeah,
is it the best there is? Absolutely. Can it be improved? 100%.
yeah, yeah. Well, so and so old timers like you and me, we love to say that, and yet, and I believe it as well. And you mentioned before, you said the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and capitalism, which, unfortunately, I think because of the lack of, um, and you mentioned before, the education is about more than just being book smart, but it's also about breadth. And I think we're educating people in such specialized ways now that a lot of people don't have like broad understandings of things. Like I would bet that if you walked down the street and asked 20 people, um, what do you think of capitalism as a form of government, they would give you their opinion without pausing to say capitalism isn't our form of government, it's our economic, right? So people don't really understand. But I think that in spite of the fact that like I said, the older generation, we love to say it's still the best system. There's a whole bunch of people today that say we should blow the whole thing up. It's all garbage. It was all created by a bunch of white supremacists, and it's not good for people. And and
Okay, so
and
ask them what do they want to replace it with? How about
well,
that?
that's a great question. That's a
No,
good
seriously.
question.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is easy to say this is terrible, but we should ask them, what do you want to replace it with? Because then but they're going to come back and say socialism.
Norway. So yeah, they're going to say Scandinavia, which
Well,
is
go
yeah.
look at it. I mean, go look at Norway and go look at some of those countries and go look at what is subsidizing those societies and look at the size of those places
The
and try to
size is
figure
a
out.
yeah.
Well, I mean, and again, I mean, and look at the fundamentally it's a homogeneous. I mean, if you look at some of those Scandinavian and those, there's one thing is consistency of these population versus this Heinz 57 that we have here, or the you know pushing 2 billion or however many 1.5 billion in China and
Yeah.
and pushing about that amount in India and so on and so forth in these caste systems or whatever the heck it is. I mean, you are, and then look at the side, look at the degree of education of some of those places versus the others. I mean, and the ability, and they talk about social health care, and they talk about this and that. You know, look, the systems. You can pick and choose an aspect of these entities and say, look how nice it is.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, when you apply it to something that is this big
Yes.
and this immense, such as the 330 million souls in this place,
Right.
and that have come from everywhere under the
Yeah.
sun. You come from a different place than I do, and there's a whole bunch of us, everywhere. And we have the system that we have in place, and what the founders, and I can guarantee you they were not white supremacists, and they were not this and that.
Yeah. Well, there's a
What
beautiful part. Part of that system that you're describing. One of the beautiful parts of it that almost never really gets thought of these days, or certainly not recognized by people who would like to change things. The only time this ever comes to the forefront is when there's some sort of a Supreme Court argument like we had just recently, which is the original system or the original mindset wasn't to try to solve the problem of government and economics and everything else for 330 million people. It was that each state would more or less kind of sort that out. And I know there's different theories about this, and people come from different. Even at the time that they were putting things together, there were disagreements about how much should kind of rest with the state and how much should rest with the national government. But even those arguments, in all of those arguments at the time, there was nothing like the size of the national government that we have today in their view. And and
no,
I have to wonder, like,
no.
if we operated more at the state level, then our states are more like the size of Scandinavian countries.
Oh,
And
you
then if
got that right.
one state wants to be a little bit more this way and another state wants to be more that way, then they can solve those problems at that level. But we don't think that way. We think like it's this and the federal government has grown so large that it's made itself bigger and bigger and bigger, so that it has to hire millions of people, and then it has to take who don't contribute to the GDP, and then it has to take money from the people who do to like fund this massive machine. So like, wouldn't it get, maybe like we could have our cake and eat it too, and everybody could have what they want if we just operated at the state level the way European countries operate. I mean, what do you think?
Goodness, 100%. I mean, to me, the genius of the founders was absolutely exactly what you're talking about, to protect the states from the feds. and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and it was. I mean, our
yeah, yeah.
Constitution, our Bill of Rights, is protecting the individual from their government, and then truly protecting the states from the federal government, because they understood that that individualism and the individual prosperity is the foundation of prosperity of the bigger sense. I mean, and that's why our Bill of Rights speaks to
Hmm.
individual rights, and
Right.
it
It's not collective rights. Yeah,
no,
yeah,
hell no. I mean,
yeah.
and that is why these things are forever, right? Because
Hmm.
what they said back in 1700s still applies today, because humans are humans.
Because yeah, people.
I want my freedom of religion. I want my freedom of speech.
Yeah,
I want
yeah,
this. I want that. This is my right. I mean, you know, and I mean, so is the genius of them was to to think how to protect that individualism, which is the foundation of prosperity of what we've had here.
yeah.
And yeah, and then look, and they were smart enough and intelligent enough to really copy some of the work of the Europeans. I mean, the English, the French, and
Very
their
for sure.
constitutions, and figuring out what worked there, what didn't work, and how to
Well,
do this.
yeah,
And
which French Constitution? There was a few, but
well, Magna Carta, but again, but I don't know. Again, I mean,
yeah,
the
yeah,
thing
but
that the thing that you said, I mean, look, federal government must have limited power. And we have absolutely turned that around, and we've given them a copying machine, a printing press, and
Yeah.
they print monopoly money. And
Yeah.
they have learned to use that monopoly money to absolutely get what the states that don't have printing presses to use that as a in the name of subsidies, in the name of we're going to take care of you with with this stuff, uh, as their way of getting what they want, and whether it's on the energy side is
Yeah.
these windmills and solar panels and battery cars. They would not exist without federal government or government subsidies, which is what is government?
Right,
Taxpayers,
because
us,
economically
our
they're
money.
not competitive
No,
economically, right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
I,
They're
I,
yeah.
and it's so there's so you said federal government has to be limited, and we've done the opposite. By the way,
Oh, huge.
there's a new thing that now they have just to work in their advantage, which is they've discovered that if there's an emergency, then they can even more do what they want. So now we're going to create emergencies. We're going to create national emergencies. But
Yeah.
limiting in my mind, it doesn't come. It comes down to something very simple, which is, and you said so a few minutes ago. You said um, no system is perfect, right?
Nope. Yeah.
And you also said that when you're trying to do it for 300 million people, or basically what you said is the larger it gets, the more difficult it becomes. So
Mm-hmm.
it's counterintuitive to to continue to grow. Like the
That's
reason
right.
why we have to limit the federal
That's right.
presence is because just from a logic standpoint, it doesn't make any sense to try to solve these problems at that scale when we could solve them at a smaller scale.
You
But
nailed it. You nailed
yeah,
it.
yeah. So, but how do we? But how do we get there from here? I
Well, how do we
mean,
get
because
there from
now
here? Is just do what the founders asked us to do 200 plus years ago. Is the
those evil
decision
white men,
should be
yes,
this decision should be local. The closer local governments should take care of local communities. State
yeah,
governments should take care of their states. Federal government should not be involved with your local communities.
education,
What
right? Yeah,
right? Education, healthcare, this, that. It's not a federal issue. It's not your energy issues. It's your state problem. And the issue, and the problem that why things need to go back to the states, and why the legislators, the people representative of those states, should be the ones in charge of passing legislations and passing laws that affect the humans in that state, is because if they don't do their jobs, then they can be replaced. And
right.
how their state representatives, their state senators, look, every state has two U.S. senators.
Yeah,
You know, Texas has 16, 17 million vote, 15 million voters. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
So two state senators in Texas account for 7.5, 8 million people, right? But if you look at state senates, when you're talking about local congressional, local state representative or state senate, now you're talking 150, 200,000 or whatever it is. Texas is a
Yeah.
little different, but again, numbers become smaller. Now go to your counties, go to your little
Mm-hmm.
townships, your mayor, your city hall, your county commissioners. Now you're talking 10, 15, 12, 20,000.
Yeah,
Now,
you're a lot
if
closer
we
to the people that you work for when that
and you got
happens, right?
that right, and that's why the livelihood, how we want to live as and prosper as Americans, these decisions has to become closer and closer to our livelihood. I don't need federal government to tell me here in my county that it's okay to put solar and wind power and this and that up. I want to be involved with that decision making because if I don't like it and the people in my county doesn't like it, I can do something about the county commissioner next time around when that county commissioner comes up for election, or I can
Yeah,
actually go
yeah,
to my city hall and not have to go to Washington to talk to who. Over here,
yeah.
I know my mayor, I know my city hall people, I know my county commissioners because we grew up together.
Right,
I
right,
mean,
right.
these are the things that we have to bring back, and that's why you have to defang the federal government
Yeah,
and their encroachment, which exactly what our Ninth and Tenth Amendment. And that's something I've learned. Our Ninth and
yeah,
Tenth
yeah.
Amendment are put by the founders on rights that wasn't included in the Bill of Rights because they said there will come a time down the road
Right, right.
when governments encroach onto your liberties. We don't know how, but
But
here are the
this is going
two
to happen,
things that
right? And so, for those that don't
anyway.
have them memorized, for the people who don't have them memorized, the Ninth and Tenth Amendments are explained.
Well, the Ninth and Tenth Amendment in general are when federal when federal government exceed its and encroaches into your liberties, your state
Hmm.
affairs or your individual
Right,
affairs. Okay, it is where you can stand up and say, you have no right of encroaching, whether I'm a
right.
state, whether I'm an individual, onto my rights, and have
Yeah,
at least something to talk about and go and try to battle them and say, this is a right that you are encroaching on. And
yeah.
whether you can beat the federal government in a court system
That's
is
another
something
thing. Yeah,
else. But the beauty about it is exactly what they saw as an avenue in providing us with that deal. Now, one of the things that is in discussion is the use of and an assessment of what's going on with our uh, energy independence in this
mm,
country, where the federal government, with their whole, the world is going to an end, and we need to do away with hydrocarbons, and we need these wind turbines and solar panels and battery cars and all this other stuff. What is in the discussion is what they're doing the threat that this brings to the energy independence of this nation. Does that affect and threatens the independence of this nation? And does it threaten the national security of this nation? I mean, imagine
mm.
the day comes that we are gone to where Germany is. I mean,
Yeah,
Germany is starting to burn wood again
right. Yeah,
because they completely now are relying their whole
on the
hydrocarbon, natural
Russians.
gas, and everything else to Russia. And now
Right.
Russia is holding that against them. And what happens to the security and national security of Germany? And
If
this is
only you could have
something,
seen that coming, right? Yeah, if only you could
right? I mean, that was
have,
20
like
years ago.
of all the countries to be dependent on, right?
Oh my
Yeah, you
gosh.
picked Russia. Yeah,
But again, if you think about it, you have OPEC, which
yeah,
will continue to pump oil and natural gas and stuff, and they will continue to. And look, the world for the next 100 years will be dependent on oil and natural
yeah.
gas. And look, in the last 20 years, the world has spent about 5 trillion. That's T, $5 trillion. That's 5,000 billion,
Mm.
okay, dollars, okay, on wind and solar technology and battery technology.
And how
The,
many
the
years?
in the last 20 years, in the last 2 decades, the world has spent about $5 trillion on this whole renewable wind, solar, and battery technologies. The dependency of the world on hydrocarbons has gone from 86% dependency to 84% dependency. Okay, 5 trillion. Okay, 2%. So my point is that
Yeah.
there is no way, absolutely no way, that we're going to be independent of oil and gas and natural gas and coal for the next 50, 75, 100 years. Not until, and it will not be a transition to wind, solar, and battery across the board. They might be fine somewhere where the wind blows and sun shines, but the battery technology is physically incapable of to
Right.
do what a gallon of oil and a barrel of oil or natural gas can do
Yeah,
for
the
the
energy
energy density
density
difference,
isn't there.
all that.
Yeah,
So so
and Mark Mills from the Manhattan Institute has been on,
there
and
you go.
he, and he has
Absolutely.
the physicist background, right? And he gets right into how the energy density, like the math, doesn't work. But I think, like, what says it all is that little bit of math that you just said, without getting too scientific. In 20 years, we spent $5 trillion, and we moved the
Yep.
needle like the tiny bit.
2%.
So now, but here's a question that I have, and I know that nobody knows this for sure, but I'm interested in your thought, because that to me says, okay, so all these people who are running around the public square saying, "Well, we just need to shut off all the oil wells and shut down the oil companies." Okay, there's lots of people who could be stupid and they think that you could just do that and turn on all the batteries. But the people in government, like, they're not dumb. Do they they must see that, right? Do they? And you talked about how the federal government says the world is going to end, so we got to do all these things. Do they really think the world's going to end, and therefore we have to do all these things, and therefore they're ignoring the simple math that you haven't even moved the needle with $5 trillion? Or are they just like using all of this for other purposes? Because if they don't really believe it, then there's no use arguing about it, right? Because then it's just a red herring. That, like, what's
I
really
would
driving
say
it?
I think there's multiple things that are driving this. Okay, politicians. Right now, the progressives and the Democrats and the left are the ones that are just all over this climate change and environmental
Right.
things. And again, these are the same crew that like to tell you the government's going to take care of you.
Right.
And
So are they really worried about the climate change and all this, or are they just using that as a tool for political gain?
I would
Because
say, look, I mean, I think pretty much if you think about welfare state, and if you really think about using government subsidies and government paychecks to keep people connected with you and
mm,
having a hold of them, I think this whole energy sector could play into that with
yeah, yeah,
these
right.
green technologies being only and only and only able to exist with subsidies and government subsidies. This is just one more thing that the big
It's about
government
control,
can
right?
use as to tell you how you're going to do things that the way they want you to do. But the end game of that, and I don't think these people are bad people. I think I think they just when Jerry Brown, for example, back in the '90s, started really pushing California down the path that is California is going today with these doing away with their hydrocarbons and oil and
Right, and
natural
all
gas
the
and everything
solar and
else.
everything, right? Yeah,
Look, I
yeah.
mean, I think their point, his point was really he had bought into this and he thought that he was doing the right thing. And what is baffling to me is what Newsom is doing today, knowing what's happened to his state, to his
Yeah.
people. What an incredible, prosperous state of that. And here we are, just doubling down on that and what he was talking about, 2035, no more internal combustion engine, which is funny because guess what? Arizona, Oregon, and all these neighboring states, their used car sales light or all their car sales are going to go up because all these people are going to go across and buy some of the cars and they're going to drive them over to California. Who's going to lose is going to be the Californians.
Meanwhile, you got businesses that are now driving the old solar panels out of California into Arizona to be disposed of
there you go.
because you can't dispose of them in California. So yeah, that's yeah,
Those are, but so what is really behind this, and frankly, I think is politicians really, especially on the left, wanting to get reelected and wanting not to upset the apple cart. And I think at the end of the day, it is the voters that hold the key, and what goes right back to the beginning of our discussion: using common sense, using your wallets, using your and recognizing that you know uh, what we have in this nation is incredibly, incredibly lucky. Not too many places in the world have the resources that we have underneath us, the property rights that we have that allows us to own the minerals underneath us. And everywhere else on the planet, just about the government owns the minerals.
correct.
You own the land, you can put your house on it, but what's underneath it is not
The
yours, it's the
government,
government's.
yeah,
That's right. In
right.
this nation, it doesn't. And that's why Pennsylvania, unfortunately, for the politics of Pennsylvania, has gone the wrong way in terms of energy, but um, because there are Democrats, this anti-hydrocarbons, but look at the whole natural gas and the prosperity that has brought the tax base and everything and all the production in Pennsylvania has
Yeah,
brought to them, and versus New York and New England that are energy poor. And here is the same Marcellus Shale that's underneath New York, that's underneath Pennsylvania, and you can see it at the border. One side is prosperous, the other one is poor.
because it hasn't been
And
developed, right? Yeah,
so
yeah,
so where this whole thing with why these people are doing what they're doing, I really think that the politicians are doing it on the left is just because the progressives are the lobbyists for the green have just gotten so loud, and there's a lot of money in it because there's a lot of subsidies in it, and that has really it's self-serving of why you know why
yeah.
these banks and funds and so on and so forth love these green energy projects because government backed loans and government subsidized events, and I think sooner or later states and folks will smarten up about that, and we'll figure out that hey, fusion or nuclear down the road. But for reality, we need to stick to natural gas, which we all use in our kitchens, by the way, without face mask. And we've done it for decades.
It's fairly
So,
safe. That's right.
and it is
It's
not fairly,
yeah,
it is very safe.
it's yeah,
And the
yeah,
good thing
very
about
safe.
it is America, USA has centuries worth of natural gas underneath us. And we have incredible technologies and companies and smart people to use it for so many things. And again, the one thing, Michael, that people forget, 25% of this stuff is used for electricity. 75% of it is used for everything else from asphalt to your home material to the clothes you wear to the glasses you wear to everything else in your life that's petroleum.
Yeah,
And ladies makeup. Okay,
yeah.
and again, food products. I mean,
So
imagine
yeah, so many
all of
things.
these things that if the fertilizers go away, the things that happen in Sri Lanka would happen. People will
Yeah,
go hungry, and governments get toppled. And in this
and talk
nation,
about like destroying prosperity in about 5 seconds. That's I
there
mean
you go.
they went from having all the food they needed. It's an interesting thing too that people and I've been around the oil and gas industry my whole professional life, and
Right.
if you're really worried about emissions, then the thing that you should focus on is combustion. Anywhere there's combustion, the getting of hydrocarbons out of the ground contributes very little to the whatever the environmental factors are. Yeah, I mean they love to sensationalize the photos of the whatever happens on a very localized case where there's a pipeline leak or there's a well that goes wrong or something. But in the grand scheme, what contributes most to this whole thing is combustion, which means that so forget about but people want to take down the industry. So it was confusing to me when people, and this is going back. I remember 2010. A friend of mine who was a geologist went over to KL in Malaysia he was there for a couple of years working, and by that time most of the city buses were natural gas, and we thought, well, this is how it's going to go. This is the solution right here, because natural gas burns clean, and like you said, there's centuries of it under the ground. Problem solved. This is how we're going to fix it. And then and that became not a good solution, and I was really confused for a long time. Like, well, how come people are against this? Like, how come all the environmental nuts are against this? This works perfectly. And it was because they don't like how we get it out of the ground. And that's all just sensationalized, because statistically, the extraction of hydrocarbons is really not a problem. And we can use we can use natural gas cleanly. We can use hydrocarbons to make hydrogen, which is a great source of fuel. And we use it to make, sunglasses and makeup and everything else. So why this hatred for the process of getting this stuff out of the ground? Why aren't they just focus on the combustion problem, which
Well,
I don't necessarily think is a problem.
Michael, I think it's lack of understanding by the bigger uh, population. What you just talked about is a small group of people, smaller in general, that truly do think what you're talking about, that oil and gas and production, this and that, is just evil and so on, and that's their belief.
Mm.
The bigger population hasn't connected that what those guys are talking about, because they are influential and so
Right,
on, is
right.
affecting again, like what got Jerry Brown back in the 90s to do the things that he did, that today California is seeing its 20 years later aftermath, was probably not by the whole Californians. Now the Californians in that state are
Yeah,
paying the price, but it was a
right.
group back then that got into his, influenced him, and to do the things that he did. And that's, I think, in a bigger picture, I think it's the same thing. That generally speaking, the voters and the masses really haven't done their homework. If they had done their homework
Right, right,
back in
right.
2010 when you saw that bus, they would go back, and if they can go to an EPA, our nation's air, an EPA report that comes out every year under
Hmm.
every administration. That goes.
Hmm.
This was Obama, and then Trump, and then now Biden. Every year, our nation's air, and you will see that the air quality of the United States is nearly 75 to 77% cleaner than it was back in 1970 when EPA came to be and started measuring this stuff.
Yeah,
And
right.
the biggest drop and the biggest, well, first, catalytic converters came
I
about
was
on
gonna say,
cars, right?
yeah, that's a big one. That was a big
And then
one. Yeah.
back in early 2000, hydraulic fracturing came about, which really just opened the faucet on natural gas. So
Cleaned up
natural
power
gas
generation. Right.
power
Yeah.
generation, now it's become 45% of the power generation in this nation, from about 18-20% that it was back then, replacing coal. And now, as I said, America, United States, leads the world in CO2 reduction, not because government, Biden, Obama, whoever else has said you got to do this, but economically it's easier to burn natural gas when it comes out of the ground, clean it up, get the sand and stuff out of it, and burn it just like we do in our kitchens, fooding our cook. Heat up steam and use the steam to generate power, was spied away, which is basically what comes out of those smokestacks. That
Yeah.
now some of these pictures show up. Oh, look at the smoke.
It's
Well, that
steam,
is
right?
steam, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but I mean, these are again, these are if the voters really understood that, this nation, we have the technology, we have the resources, we have the capabilities of really using what we have as a bridge fuel. Use the natural gas, use our capabilities as a bridge, however way it takes. The world isn't going to come to an end in 2030, 2050, 2100. We have plenty of capabilities to figure out cold fusion. We have plenty of capabilities to figure out how to cheaply, affordably, safely break down water into hydrogen and oxygen and use these as fuel, and guess what? There's no carbon in there. And
Right.
again, all of this can happen if we got the government out of the way, got the
Hmm.
politician and red tapers out of the way, and we use our free market. And again, capitalism to me is free. Anything that has free in it, free market, free enterprise, free people, is where prosperity and success of humanity just is flourishes. And
Right.
that's where we're going. And that's when I think ultimately we as a whole will get there. But I just sure hope that I want to be alive to see it happening in my
I would.
lifetime, because
Yeah.
because because we'll get there. I mean, if we don't get
Yeah.
there, we'll destroy ourselves. I mean, I think when I at the very beginning I said we're at a crossroad. Humanity either exists as free or it will destroy itself. Is
Yeah.
we are at that stage. Once this brain of ours, once we as humans saw prosperity and what it means, what freedom means, we're not going to stop, and we'll get there one way or another.
Yeah. The third option is that the machines take over, but that's that's a whole.
well,
So,
well, by that time
but
we'll
I
all be Matrix, and like you
yeah,
said,
we won't care.